There was a segment backstage where Big E was with Kofi and The Miz was back there, and Big E said that he watched the balls drop. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. He watched the balls drop on New Year's. And Kofi pointed out, there's only one ball. He goes, what the hell were you watching? We could all imagine what Big E must have been watching. I don't want to know. There was a segment backstage with the Revival. They were making short jokes about Chad Gable. Gable's new catchphrase that I hope dies in a fire is rise over size. If this were 20 years ago, we would have a very different backstage segment with Val Venus making fun of Chad Gable for a very different reason. And he would still be the butt of the jokes. Rise over size is his new catchphrase. I certainly put that on a t-shirt. We'll see how many they sell. I'm going to say they don't sell very many. You know, I'm old enough to remember when Chad Gable kind of got over during that King of the Ring tournament. Remember that great King of the Ring tournament? It was so long ago. It was, what was this, 7 months ago? It feels like a lifetime ago. It feels like an eternity. He was actually getting over, doing what he does best. Through his work in the ring, he was getting over. And then they said, well, he's getting over, so we have to stop this. I know what we'll do. We'll call him Shorty G, and we'll dress him up like something out of fucking Space Jam. Boy, that's done his career a world of wonders, hasn't it? Look at the reactions that he gets now when he comes out on television every single week. Look at the way that this guy looks. Boy, he's so much more over now than he was before, right? Nope. He's less over. So whatever they had with him, I don't know how far they would have gone with it. He might be in the same spot now that he's in, had they just kept him going out there as the great wrestler, the great underdog babyface Chad Gable. They never gave him a chance. The minute they gave him that shitty name with that shitty gear, that was it. It was over. You know it, and I know it. I talked about it at the time. I said, what are you doing? You're cutting this guy's legs off. And here we are, a few months later. Boy, look how over Chad Gable is. I said this on the show with Wade. I said, so what would you have done with him? I said, well, it's very simple. I think what could have worked for him, and he could have remained a solid player in that middle of the card, at least for a while on Smackdown. He really didn't have to be anything more than the guy who went in there and wowed you with strong spots that you wouldn't expect someone like him would be able to do. Because I've seen him throw guys around with that Chaos Theory and other moves. Guys that were twice his size. And it always gets a pop out of the audience. So yeah, you can have a segment like this, maybe where he's backstage as Chad Gable and he's being bullied around by the heels. Look at you. You think you could take me? Hey, short stack, and throw some short jokes at him without turning this whole storyline into I'm so short, which he really fucking isn't. And that's the other thing that's just annoyed me this whole time. You would think this guy, when he walks out there, he cuts these speeches, I accept my flaws and I accept who I am. What are you, 3'8"? He's an average size guy. Was he 5'8"? That's average. In today's WWE, with all the smaller guys they have, he's average size. This is not the land of the giants anymore. You don't have a whole roster full of Braun Strowmans and Brock Lesnars. But they push this narrative. It's like, we have this agenda. We want to do a storyline for the kids. Let's use Chad Gable, and let's say that he's been held back because he's too short. I've been short my whole life. Never seemed to be a problem for him before. All of a sudden, I've come to accept my problem. It's like it's some kind of fatal flaw in his DNA or something. All you needed to do was have this guy who is on the smaller side, and maybe he gets pushed around a little bit, and he looks at the other guy, and he kind of laughs. He's like, all right, I'll see you out there. And they go out there, and he just blows people away by throwing these guys around like they're nothing. And out wrestling them and making them look stupid. I would compare it to what they did with Hardcore Holly and Crash Holly back in the late 90s. Crash Holly was a smaller guy as well. Bob Holly was not what I would call a small person. But you had Kane and The Undertaker and The Big Show and a few other big guys back then. and he'd be in there with them, and he was the super heavyweight. They would announce him as 450 pounds. It was hilarious. He would come out because in storyline, he thought he was this giant of a man. He thought he was this giant killer, and he would go out there, and he was completely delusional. But in this case with Gable, he'd be able to back it up in the ring because I've seen him do it before. That's all you would need. I guarantee you he would get over with the crowds if you did that. Almost like this, silent killer in a way. He'll smile at you. He'll crack jokes. He'll show some personality in the back. But you push him around. You push this guy's buttons. Uh-oh. It ain't gonna end well for you. But what they're doing with him now, it's like, it's frustrating. It's very frustrating. So they have the Revival back there, and they're making short jokes, and he throws this stupid new catchphrase that I guarantee you will not even be a catchphrase a month from now. It'll be forgotten. And this was for a match that he would go out there and have with, I believe it was Dash Wilder. Now, at the end of this match, and I was more focused on what happened post-match. I believe it ended on a DQ when Dawson got involved, and he was being ganged up on. And out comes Sheamus. Sadly, we don't have his old theme music back. There were not too many limes or lobster heads here on this TV show. He is using his newer music is cool. I kind of would like to hear the old music. So he comes out white as a ghost. I mean, we know this, it's Sheamus, but my God, the way they put that spotlight on him, you would think that some portal to another dimension was opening up. But no, it's a human being. And he comes down to the ring, and it looks like he's coming to save Chad Gable. And the Revival, they take a powder, they bail, they get the hell out of there. And then Sheamus turns around, and he mows down Chad Gable with this awesome-looking Brogue Kick that Gable just sold like death. He got folded up like an accordion, this guy did. Nearly took his head clean off his shoulders with this Brogue Kick. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, between Daniel Bryan shaving his head and shaving his face and Sheamus going back to his old haircut and his old look, it's like some portal opened up back to 2012 or something. I feel like we have just been transported back to the year 2012. Now, Sheamus and Gable, if this was going to be Sheamus's first program back, maybe it was just a one-night thing and Gable just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But if this was going to become a program, if there was going to be a match or a series of matches between the two of them, I know it's not going to end well for Chad Gable. Chad Gable is not going to beat Sheamus. I know this already. But I think it has the potential to be great. I think it has the potential to give us some great matches the way that Sheamus and Daniel Bryan did back in that year, back in 2012. Now, forget about their 18-second match at WrestleMania. A lot of people may have forgotten that they followed that WrestleMania matchup the following month at Extreme Rules. That was the same show where Brock Lesnar had his first match back and he lost to John Cena in the main event, but I thought it was the match of the year. But on that same show was another contender for match of the year, an excellent 2 out of 3 falls match between Daniel Bryan and Sheamus. Gable and Bryan, they're similar in size, they're both great wrestlers. There's a lot of similarities between the two of them. I would love to see Gable and Sheamus get in the ring and be given 15 minutes to go out there, maybe on a pay-per-view, and have a match together. Now, I know he'll be Brogue kicked into oblivion at the end, but I think that has the potential to be a really fun match. Some good chemistry maybe between the two of them. So we'll see if that's the direction they go in. Kofi Kingston pinned The Miz. The Miz is, he's been not himself ever since losing to The Fiend. He's been sort of obsessed, and he's just not happy about where his career is at this point. So after a little disagreement with the New Day backstage, we get this match. Kofi Kingston against The Miz. Miz loses the match. Kofi almost like a fluke, like roll-up pin on The Miz. Miz snaps. He attacks Kofi. He gets booed. And as he's backing up the ramp to go to the backstage area, he's looking out at the crowd. He can't believe that these people are booing him. After everything I've been through, he says. So it looks like Miz is a heel again, or going to be a heel again. Maybe he'll come out on TV and apologize this week. I was surprised that the fans took to him as a babyface the way that they did. And I said as much, when he really started to get over as a babyface. During the alliance and everything with Shane McMahon, I was surprised, pleasantly surprised by that, because I did not think that people would get behind him the way that they did. He is a natural-born heel. That is the role that he was born to play. Some guys are just better and more well-suited for that role. Some people are meant to be a babyface. What Pat Patterson once told Ricky Steamboat. Steamboat wanted to turn heel sometime in the early 90s, and Patterson's like, you are not a heel. People will never believe you are a heel. You're too nice of a guy. You're just a born and bred babyface, and they would not let this guy go heel. Some people are just natural in one role over the other. Some guys can play both roles equally well. Who knows? Maybe Ricky Steamboat would have been a badass heel. You know, he never got the chance to play one. Miz had the chance to play babyface, and he actually got over until, the Shane McMahon feud and played itself out, and that pretty much killed whatever momentum as a babyface he had. He was never the same after that. He was never the same after that feud where Shane beat him at every turn. It was a feud designed to get Shane McMahon over, not get The Miz over. It actually made him a little less popular, I think, with the fans. So that was the beginning of the end for babyface Miz, I think, last year, after the stuff with Shane McMahon. But backstage, Kathy Kelly tries to get an interview with The Miz. She knocks on his door, and the door opens, but it's not The Miz. It's John Morrison, and maybe the most uneventful return that I have ever seen. Actually, I'll take that back. Maybe the second, you know what? Maybe it is the most uneventful. I was going to say Christian when he came back in 2009? Right? They brought him back on the ECW brand. I remember him walking out on ECW. And who was the announcer? Was it Matt Stryker? I don't remember who was doing the play-by-play at the time. It was like, or maybe it was, who's that guy? Maybe it was Grisham, Todd Grisham. But Christian walks out, it's Christian. And he had been gone for years. He left the company like 4 or 5 years earlier, and he was, NWA champion in TNA and all that. And so this should be kind of a big deal. It's like, it's Christian. This might be worse. He opened a door. It's almost like he never left. He's been backstage the whole time. They just didn't knock on the right door. So there's John Morrison, and Morrison says Miz has nothing to say. He has no comment. And then he closes the door. It looks like they may, in fact, be doing something with Miz and Morrison. I mean, obviously they are doing something with Miz and Morrison. And when I first talked about this months ago, because remember, it was Mike Johnson of PW Insider, not WWE on their website, who broke the news back in September. WWE made the official announcement in December. PW Insider broke the story in September that John Morrison, he wasn't close to signing. He might sign. He signed. He was signed, sealed, and delivered with WWE in September. And I said at the time, the roster, the place that I think would be best suited to land him would be SmackDown. And if he goes to SmackDown, you can then do something with him and Miz. Let them rekindle their partnership. Let them start doing a few tag team matches together. Bring back the Dirt Sheet segment. Instead of Miz TV, you do the Dirt Sheet, and they do a few of those on TV. Eventually, you'll break them apart. They'll probably feud again. But why not? It would give Miz something to do, because there was no way he was beating Bray Wyatt for the championship. He never even got a title match. He had a non-title match, and he still lost. So the timing for The Miz is great, because now he can be a heel again, which he was born to play. He can, he can do stuff with Morrison, and maybe this even, leads into something at WrestleMania. For Miz, the timing could not be any better for Morrison to be back on TV. It's the right place for him to be. It's the right place for him to be. And Miz and Morrison maybe having some matches against the New Day. Hey, sign me up. I think those could be great matches. I think that would be great. Now, Corey Graves, they come back, they show the announcers at ringside, and Corey Graves makes a comment. We've heard rumblings of John Morrison possibly returning to WWE. Meanwhile, as I said, the company itself formally announced his return a month ago. And he appeared on one of their YouTube shows. He appeared on that Bump show with Kayla Braxton. And The Miz was on there. They kind of, they piped him in there via Skype and everything. So this was hardly some kind of well-kept secret. But Graves has heard rumblings. This is what they had the man say. This is how stupid they made him look on TV on Friday night. That's quite the rumble. That's quite the rumble that he heard. Given that the company announced this over a month ago. And the main event had Roman Reigns teaming with Daniel Bryan, taking on King Corbin and Dolph Ziggler. This is where we got the, first we got a Fiend appearance. Towards the end of the match, Bryan was in control, and the lights went out, and the Fiend appeared at ringside, and Bryan brawled with him for a little bit. He got the claw locked in, put Bryan down, so that was the end of Daniel Bryan. Roman Reigns was outgunned. He was outmanned. He was all by himself, and that's when the Usos made their return here on Friday Night SmackDown. So I don't know if this is the start of some new little faction. I think it's just a case where they'll be loosely aligned with Roman here a little bit. Maybe they'll have, some kind of 6-man tag where they tag together. But I expect the Usos just to go back into the tag team ranks and probably be challenging for the titles soon enough. It also means we may end up with more Usos and New Day matches. Now, Usos and New Day always have great matches together, but I mean, how many Usos and New Day matches are we going to get? I'm a little worried about that. Maybe we'll have the Usos against Morrison and Miz. Maybe that can be a tag team feud. But I think having them back in the tag team ranks is a strong addition to the SmackDown roster. I'm not quite sure how they would do it. I was thinking about this, and I actually got an email from somebody saying the same thing. But I just don't know how they would pull this off. How would they explain this on TV? Aside from maybe some kind of standoff in the ring at the Royal Rumble, but this seems like the perfect setup for Roman Reigns and the Usos in some kind of a match against Seth Rollins and the Authors of Pain. Everything's perfectly aligned. I just don't know how or why you would do that match. I just think the timing of it, though, in terms of 3-on-3 would make sense. But pretty much in every other way, it would not make any sense. So I don't know if that's an idea they have. I don't know if maybe at the Rumble there'll be a little something going on there, or they won't have any interaction at all.